First of all, very good morning to all of you for coming here. Appreciate you guys taking the time and being a part of this presentation. What I'm going to talk to you about is essentially about how culture is an important aspect of the whole employee experience as well as growing your business. So, what is employee experience? Is it the cool swag? Or amazing workplaces? Or is it about the great workplaces that you all have? You know, all these companies are investing a lot of money in creating the physical environment for people to thrive, to collaborate, to connect and whatnot. Or is it about the things that we do at work, the fun stuff? A lot of people getting together, doing activities, and trying to build teams as they become a part of the organization. Technically, it's all this and more, right? Do you guys agree? Okay. So, employee experience is essentially the journey an employee takes with an organization. A lot of people talk about engagement, right? A lot of businesses, a lot of HR folks focus on engagement, but engagement is essentially the outcome of the experiences people have with an organization, the connection. So what are these things that create the experience for an employee? And how do you essentially design it? Now there's an interesting book that I read in the recent past by Jacob Morgan where he talks about the employee experience advantage, and essentially he focuses on three aspects, or in his research he has found that there are three aspects of creating an employee experience. The three environments are the cultural environment, the technical environment, the technological environment rather, and the physical environment, in terms of how culture is an important aspect of employee experience. What role does the physical spaces of an organization play in terms of creating the employee experience? And finally, the tools that people use to perform their work. So all these three, the intersection of all these three coming together is what essentially creates the employee experience for your people. And specifically, of all the three areas, right, one of the areas that I'm going to talk to you about in detail is the cultural environment and why culture is an essential aspect. And I would actually believe, you know, having spent close to 20 years with an organization, having seen it grow from back in 1996 with 5 people to 8,000 people in December 2019, we have seen a lot of things that has happened in the industry in terms of the technological advancements, the transformations that have happened thanks to cloud, thanks to so many AR and virtual reality and everything coming in place. The way people are interacting with each other has changed. So how is culture an important aspect is something I want to dwell on here. So a very simple way to identify or define culture for a business is it is what a character is to an individual, right? When we talk about Uber or Google or Facebook, we all think about all the cool things. What comes to your mind is how the workplace promotes innovation, how people are able to contribute and make a change, right? So in terms of the cultural aspects, you know, when you talk about a country, when you talk about a region, when you say culture, it's the, you bring in language, you bring in the food, you bring in the art and everything. That constitutes a culture for a region or for a country. What is it for a business? The first attribute of culture for a business is how do businesses take decisions? How are the signals that your leadership, how is the leadership processing the signals that it receives, be it from your customers, be it from your partners, be it from the internal employees? How are these signals being processed and how are they coming and making those decisions? That is an attribute of culture for a business. The second aspect is engagement. How are they engaging with all the constituents? The customers, obviously, the employees, again, the partner ecosystem that they're working with, and the corporate social responsibility that they have. All of this, how are they engaging with the society? that essentially is also an attribute of a business's culture. And then the third aspect is measurement. How are you measuring your business? Are you measuring it in terms of averages? Are you looking at things like PE ratio? Because some organizations may measure themselves on PE ratios. Some may look at metrics such as revenue per employee to identify what are the best metrics that define them. And from an HR perspective, what are you looking at? Are people delivering on projects on time? Are people putting out products on time, right? And what is the return on investment on all this investment that's being made for creating projects, doing these projects and these products? So another aspect to measurement from an HR perspective is not to look at the averages, but look at within an organization, there could be one or two set of products that do extremely well. So what are those product teams doing? What are those business units doing differently that makes them so successful? So identifying those traits and trying to imbibe them into the rest of the organization and trying to create that environment of growth is what measurement is going to help HR to do. And finally, the style of leadership. Different organizations and different departments work in different ways. For example, an organization or a department like sales and marketing may be pretty open and pretty flat in terms of the hierarchy. However, when you look at departments such as finance or legal, there is no way that they can be too flat simply because they are governed by strictures such as audits, compliance, and all these equations decide how an organization or a department has to structure itself. So again, style in terms of the structure, style in terms of how they operate. And why is this important? Why is the cultural aspect of a company important? And here I can probably share an anecdote. Back in 1996 when we started, like I said, we were 5 people. And we were riding the telecom boom. We made lots of money. We have been profitable from year one. It's a private company, by the way. However, in 2000, 90% of our customers were decimated. The dot-com boom, the dot-com burst happened. The telecom burst happened. As a result, 90% of our paying customers were no longer there. So we had to reinvent ourselves. And at that point, we made an important pivot in terms of turning away from telecom-based solutions to enterprise software. So again, we started on that trend. We kind of worked on the infrastructure and the IP that we created, run up to the dot-com burst, and then we survived. And then we had the first pivot in the company. And then we grew again. We have been profitable even in that enterprise. It's now another division of the company. And today, that particular division employs as many as 3,000 people of the 8,000 people. So what we also understand is happy employees make happy customers. The more engagement your employees are having within the organization, they're going to engage your customers more. Same thing when a study was done in terms of how happy salespeople have impacted sales. This is the numbers that came out. And finally, here are some numbers that are interesting to look at. 81% customers are willing to pay more for a better experience. And again, at the end of the day, employee experience is connected to customer experience. You cannot separate them. They are joined at the hip. So a good employee experience essentially means good customer experience, and that in turn propels the growth of a company. So as an HR function, you have the responsibility and also the power to create these employee experiences, to create and shape the business growth. Now, I know I'm probably on 2 minutes to go, 3 minutes to go? Okay. I can take questions. I can talk about Zoho. Any questions you have in terms of what are the work that we're doing. By the way, we are at booth number 726. We have a full suite of products for businesses all the way from applicant tracking system all the way up to payroll. We have the full suite of solution. It's a platform called the Zoho HR suite of solutions. Please do come and take a look at it. Booth number 726. I'm open for questions. It's culture. It's culture, because at the end of the day, the growth for any organization is to perpetuate the culture. Because you bring in people as you grow, right? You start up and you're a successful company. You want more people to join you, and as people join you, you want them to hit the ground running. For them to be successful, they need to connect to your organization. And what is it that they connect to? The swag, yeah. The tools, yeah. But at the end of the day, even the technology aspect, even the way the physical spaces are created in an organization, essentially is to perpetuate the culture. So identifying the culture, in fact, that's the reason I spent the time on the cultural aspect, because once you identify the culture, there are things that come around it that help you to perpetuate. And perpetuating a business culture is essentially the business's growth. So great question, thank you. See, culture is essentially having a specific goal or a mission statement. But the way people get to that point, it's like seeking God, right? There are multiple ways to do that. And every department and organization, as long as they're aligned, you will have differences in terms of how people get towards that, but then the culture is going to be central. For example, being agile and being someone who is open to change, nothing is going to anything opposed to it is breaking the culture. So if you want to be aligned, there is some way or the other, you will have to come there. You may take more years to come to make that change. For example, classic example, divisions like, or departments like legal and finance, they are not open to change just like that, because there are a lot of strictures and compliance and audits that they are answerable to. But other departments may be more open. But at the end of the day, the fact that as an organization, you want to kind of hold on to that core belief and culture that you are an agile company, nothing's going to stop you from, nothing is going to have you move away from that. But can you have conflicting cultures? Well, probably not. So the very fact that you have started to think about a change, I think that's the first thing, because the biggest barrier to anything is change. Change is the most difficult aspect for any company. So how do you manage that? You need the leadership. Again, it starts with, take for example, someone like Steve Jobs. Did everybody in Apple agree with him? Probably not. But the fact that he had a vision and everybody was marching towards it, that makes a difference. Same thing with someone like Satya Nadella or maybe even Sundar Pichai. There are tons of people. You are dealing with people. You will have opposition. Everything is, the minute you say you're going to be democratic, there are going to be a lot of opinions. But coming back to your question, it is that sense of identifying that you need a change, right? As the saying goes, when the student is ready, the teacher arrives. So in a similar way for businesses, when they are at a point, it's going to be so toxic, things are going to be held up at a certain level where you want to break the glass ceiling, and that will happen. So you could call that a pivot point. And again, culture is not something that's going to be static forever, because we are living in changing times. But then there are certain values that will never change, right? But culture is subject to the vagaries of the society per se. You're dealing with millennials today. The way you engage with them is very different from how you engaged with the baby boomers, for example. Because the baby boomers, they never asked questions. The status quo was, you're given a job, you're given a salary, be happy about it. But today we're talking about employee experience. We're talking about, war for talent. We're talking about so many different aspects of engaging with a human to be a part of your organization. Today we are fighting that battle. So, to answer your question very pointedly, cultures will change. So, you cannot say a company does not have a culture. It will definitely have a culture. Maybe it's toxic, but again, over time it's going to change, as long as the people who want to change it are going to make it happen. Because at the end of the day, culture does not get created by itself. It's people who create it. So.